Welcome to our channel Quaint Cosmos. Today we are going to dive one very interesting, fascinating topic, but often overlooked. Yes, this topic, the topic is graveyard orbit. This topic is overlooked, but no doubt it's fascinating. So, what is graveyard orbit? We know orbit. This term we use in the case of normally satellites. For other things also, the term orbit is used, but here we are talking about in this video satellites. So many types of satellites are there. The distances of the satellites from the surface of the Earth are different. There is low Earth orbit satellites. You know, low Earth orbit, there is a range. Low Earth orbit means those satellites are near to the Earth. Means radii of the orbits are low or small. Okay, the range is normally 160 kilometer to 2000 kilometer. But if we talk about geosynchronous satellites, then or geostationary, you know, geostationary is a special case of geosynchronous satellites. So let's talk about the geosynchronous satellites, which stays at the maximum distance from the surface of the Earth. The distance is 35,786 kilometers. Let's say for approximately this is equal to 36,000 kilometers. Okay, it is just less than that. Very small difference is there anyway. So this distance is very large as compared to the distance in case of low Earth orbits. So at the end of the life cycles, means at the end of the lives of the satellites, what happens to the satellites? They need to be removed from the orbits. Okay, so in case of low Earth orbits, the satellites are near to Earth, so they are brought back to the atmosphere. And our Earth's atmosphere acts as a natural disposal mechanism. So the satellites are burned up in the atmosphere. When satellites burn up in the atmosphere. Okay, so that is the end of the satellites. When this is done, at the end of the lives of the satellites. Okay, and what happens in case of geosynchronous satellites? Yes, in case of geosynchronous satellites, you would get the term graveyard orbit. Graveyard, meaning of graveyard is known to you. Okay, where dead bodies are buried, human dead bodies are buried, that is known to you. So a name of the orbit is given that way, graveyard orbit. Graveyard orbit are near to the geosynchronous orbit, but there is a distance must be there. Okay, the distance between graveyard orbit and geosynchronous orbit is almost equal to 300 kilometers, and it is further away from the surface of the Earth. That means at the end of the lives of geosynchronous satellites, those satellites are sent further away from the surface of the Earth, and that distance is almost 300 kilometers. Okay, why this is done? Why the defunct satellites need to be removed from their orbit? Because otherwise, because always say, since they have already become not operational, out of order or not operational, means they are of no use. So newer satellites need to be sent to the orbit, so that way there will be a crowd in the orbit. Okay, so to remove those satellites for the purpose of safety, for other purposes also, for the smooth operation of the operational satellites, means working satellites, the defunct satellites need to be removed from there. Right? So this is done. So for that purpose, fuel is required. So end of life fuel management means engineers and mission planners, they know at the end of the lives of geosynchronous satellites, they need to be moved to the graveyard orbit, and for that purpose some fuel is required. The distance is almost 300 kilometers. So to travel that distance, some fuel is required. So that fuel management is done by the engineers and the mission planners. Okay, using that fuel, those satellites are sent to the graveyard orbit. Of course, there is a problem with graveyard orbit also. You are clearing up this geosynchronous orbit this way, but since all these satellites are being sent to the graveyard orbit, that means there is a crowd. Number of satellites are going on increasing day by day. So again, what will be the requirement in the future? In the future, requirement will be to clear up the graveyard orbit also. So scientists are working on in this field. They are trying to develop robots. They are trying to develop different machines so that those defunct satellites can be reused somehow. Okay, by using those satellites, newer satellites can be built in future. Okay, so right now I am not talking about the future technologies. The topic of discussion here in this video is only the graveyard orbit. So you may ask, why not the satellites orbiting in the geosynchronous orbit? Those are brought back to the atmosphere and burned up? Yes. That could be done if the distance were small, but the distance is how much? It is almost 36,000 kilometers. So to travel this distance, much fuel is required. So bringing them back to the atmosphere is, first thing is, it's so dangerous, it's so complicated, and next thing is, much fuel is required. Okay, so to avoid such things, those are sent to the graveyard orbit. So that is the importance of graveyard orbit. And since those are dead satellites, that's why this topic is often overlooked by the students or by the scientist community. Okay, since those are dead, you know, dead bodies, human dead bodies are also not valuable at present. Once you are dead, you will be declared as valueless. For human body, this happens. So for satellites, so naturally, people are not interested, scientists are not interested about the dead satellites. And that's why that topic is not so interesting or not so fascinating. But for many people, this topic is fascinating. And for myself also, this topic is fascinating. Graveyard orbit. Okay, anyway, so this was all about the topic graveyard orbit. Okay, so this is the place where defunct satellites are sent. Okay, to remove the debris from the geosynchronous orbit. Otherwise, there is a chance of collision because day by day, number of satellites are increasing. To fulfill different purposes such as navigation is there, weather forecasting is there. Many things are accomplished by the use of satellites. You know all these things. Anyway, so this was all about today's topic, graveyard orbit. And this is the end of this video. Thank you for watching this video.